Welcome back. In this particular lesson, I'm going to introduce to you a study of knowledge called axiology, which is the study of value and worth. Your self-worth is derived from it, and the value you provide the world that comes from it. It is one of the most important ologies that I've been blessed to study, and yet it's the least available to study. One of the reasons I wrote the Values Factor book is because I felt that so many people don't know really the significance of these values that they live by. And so if you have something to write with and write on, you may want to take some notes. If you do, draw in the same proportion on the page as I do. Occasionally, I may make a note to write on a separate piece of paper, so have another piece of paper to write notes. And let's explore axiology, the study of values, for a moment. First, start by drawing a line right down the center of the page. And at the top of that line, draw another cross line. And at the bottom, draw a line. And at the top line, I want you to put HV, which means highest values, or highest valued, pardon me. And at the bottom, I want you to put LV, not for the lowest value, but for the lower value. We really don't know what the lowest value in a human being's life is. That is potentially infinite. This highest value is also sometimes called the highest priority in the individual's life, or what the thing is most important to their life, or your life. And down below, you have a lower priority, or less important, LI. So you have a series of values or priorities, or a series of things that are most to least important in your life. And I'm going to draw a series of lines in here. And right across the middle, I'm going to call it the hierarchy of your values. Now, you have a hierarchy of values, a set of priorities that you live your life by. This hierarchy of values is fingerprint specific to you. Voice print specific to you, snowflake specific, retinal pattern specific to you. No two people have the same exact set of values. They may have similar ones, but not exactly the same. Because each individual has a different vantage point and series of experiences that lead to these values. These values are derived from three primary sources. One is multi-epigenetic sources from previous generations, multi-generational. Some are birthed during gestation while we're in the womb, and some are born at the time of birth all the way to today. This set of values is derived from voids. As Aristotle said way back when he was studying values, some things that are most missing in our life seem to be most valuable. If you don't have a relationship, you search for a relationship. If you don't seem to have money, you search for money. Whatever you perceive as most missing can become now most important, that you want to import into that void that's missing. So the hierarchy of your voids will underlie the hierarchy of your values, which will then dictate how you perceive, decide, and act. Your sensory neurons, your motor neurons, and your interneurons inside the central nervous system all respond to your values. Your intentions of your motor and your attentions of your sensory are all governed by your values. Now, in this set of values or hierarchy of values that are unique to you, and by the way, no two people, as I said, have the same values, and there's a full spectrum of values across the world. So whatever you are dedicated to, there's somebody dedicated to exactly the opposite. That's why we have people that are pro-life and pro-abortion, pro-guns, anti-guns, pro-this, anti-that, because somebody out there has an opposite set of values. And you're not right for your values, and they're not wrong, or they're not right, and you're not wrong. You just have a necessary pair of opposites that make up the society in order to make things function. At first, you would think, maybe if you're new at the game, that, oh, why don't get everybody on the same page and have everybody the same values? Well, believe it or not, the social structure falls apart, and we don't get anything done if everybody had the same. If any two people are exactly the same, one is not necessary. That would be the twilight zone, as it used to be described in the 1950s. So you have a hierarchy of values, and whatever's highest on your list of values, the very highest, is an intrinsic value. An intrinsic value is the thing that your identity revolves around and the thing that you spontaneously are inspired to act upon. If you look in your life very carefully, you'll see that there's something that you do that nobody has to remind you to do. You don't need external motivation to do it. You just do it. And this intrinsic value is where you're going to excel and where you're going to have the least resistance and most persistence in your life. So we're going to be talking a lot about the highest value because of that. As you progressively go down the series of values, they progressively become more extrinsic. Extrinsic means external, and that means it requires external motivation to get you to do them. See, what's highest on your value, you spontaneously do. What's lowest on your value, you need to be motivated and reminded to do. You need incentives to do. So here, you require external motivation to get you to do it. So if you look carefully in your life, let's take a young boy who's 12 years old as an example. He may love video games, which is very common in today's era. And he spontaneously does his video games. He doesn't need to be motivated, reminded, or incentivized to do his video games. He doesn't have his mother going, now, Johnny, stop doing your homework and chores and go do your video games. But the other way around is more likely, Johnny, stop doing your video games and do your homework. So anything that's low on the value, you require motivation to get done. Incentives. So your mom uses your highest value as a cornerstone for the motivation. Johnny, if you don't do your homework, you can't play with your video games. But once you do, you can now play. So if you do what I ask, your homework, you get to be rewarded. If you don't, you get to be punished. So external motivation is a reward and punishment mentality coming from external sources, not intrinsic drive. In the brain, there's the thing called evoked potentials and spontaneous potentials. Spontaneous potentials automatically come out of the brain, and evoked potentials are stimulated by some sensory input from an external source. And the ones that are spontaneous are the ones that are most efficient and effective as a human being. So identifying what's highest on your value is very, very powerful and can make a difference in you being a high achiever or not. The people who walk their talk are the people who are doing things that are aligned with their highest value. The people that limp their life are the people trying to do something that's lower on their values and constantly needing external motivation. I'm not a motivational speaker. A motivational speaker uses rhetorical persuasion of rewards and punishments to get you to do something that they want you to do. An inspired educator, which I am, is interested in helping you find out what's truly intrinsically important to you and help you structure your life so you can spontaneously achieve what's meaningful to you. And this is the difference between a meaningful life that's inspired and one that is basically motivated. One that is just spontaneous and one that requires discipline. This fake discipline that most people think that they got and they're trying to buy in the marketplace. This intrinsic value, the highest one, you're spontaneously disciplined, reliable, and focused to do. Nobody need to motivate you to do it. Mine is teaching. My highest value is teaching. I spontaneously am disciplined, reliable, and focused on teaching. I do it every day, 7 days a week, pretty well, and I love it. I can't think of anything else I'd rather be doing. Whatever's highest on your value, you spontaneously think about also and see in your mind's eye. But whatever's lower on your value, the farther they go down, the lower the values, the more you procrastinate, hesitate, and frustrate. So when the mother goes and says, now, Johnny, do your homework, he'll procrastinate, hesitate, and frustrate, and go back to his video games. And then she'll go in there and start to punish and reward him in order to do it. Oh, I have to do that? Oh, God, Mom. So if you're going through life and you need outside motivation constantly to do what you say is important, what you say is important isn't important. Now, I've been doing value determinations 45 going plus years, and I've seen people believe they knew their values. And in another lesson that's coming on how to determine your values, you want to pay close attention to, because it's crucial to really know what's really important to you, not what you think it is. I've asked people, how many of you want to be financially independent? And everybody puts their hand up. I said, how many of you are? And they put their hands down. In other words, what they fantasize and what they're actually living are two different things. I'm interested in knowing what you walk your talk on, not what you limp your life on. So that's why values are very crucial to know. Now, whatever is highest on your value, the HV, in the time of the ancient Greeks and Aristotle, 2,300 and something years ago, he understood this highest value and he gave it a title called the telos. The telos is the end in mind. Now, he believed that everything had entelechia, some purpose underlying it. And most people today in the study of meaning and purpose understand it to be something individualized according to that individual, because no two people have the same set of values. So there's no inherent value about your life, but there is something based on your perceptions in your life, what leads you to what your unique set of values are and what your purpose in life is, which I will elaborate on in a moment. This highest value, this telos, this end in mind, Napoleon Hill called the chief aim. So we could give that title to it, the chief aim in your life. In my case, it's teaching. My chief aim, or sometimes called the highest priority or the highest objective, the number one objective. This is the thing that is the dominant focus that your life revolves around. It's so important to know what the telos is that Aristotle made a whole study of it, and he called it teleology. Now, teleology in science today is not honored as much as it once was because there's a difference between materialistic, mechanistic, and physicalist view about the universe and people that were more, you might say, metaphysically oriented. And so that's not been considered empirical, but the real truth is that each individual has their own teleology, the thing that is the most meaningful and purposeful to them. There may not be some objective thing that's measurable, but inside the human mind, it's there. So teleology is the study of meaning and purpose. And my experience is that people that feel that they have meaning in life, it's Viktor Frankl who went through the concentration camps, and he was the one that sustained the concentration camps because he found meaning in what was happening. He found a purpose behind the things. And people that have a purpose in life and have some meaning to life tend to flourish, and those that are meaningless and purposeless tend to perish. So it's very important to know what your highest value is. And what's interesting is, if you identify what that is, your highest value underlies your mission in life. People are looking for some sort of esoteric source for their mission, but the real truth is your mission or purpose in life is an expression of your highest value. So I'm a teacher. My highest value is teaching in human behavior, maximizing human potential. My teaching of that is my highest value. That's what gives me most meaning and most purpose in life. That's the thing that I can't wait to get up in the morning and spontaneously do. Now, what's interesting is, in your brain, you have the sensory nerves coming in. You've got a spinal cord and a brain stem for those nerves to come into. Then it goes up to what is called the thalamus. The thalamus is part of the diencephalon. And the diencephalon, this thalamus, is a gating, filtering mechanism for a relay station to the cortex. So what happens is any stimulus that comes in, any sensory input that comes into your brain, sight, sound, smell, taste, feel, it comes in, it goes up a series of tracks, it goes into the thalamus, and if it is important, according to your highest values, it's filtered in and goes up to the cortex to become conscious. If it's not highest on priority, it is filtered out and goes into the amygdala and goes into the subconscious. So you become conscious of what's really highest and become, in a sense, unconscious or subconscious in what's lower. So what happens is you are literally filtering things out, and you have what is called a selective biased attention. Now, let me give you an analogy. Imagine you're 35 years old, you have 3 beautiful children, you're a mother, and your highest value is being a mother, raising beautiful children. Now, let's say you get your children into the backseat of the car in these little chairs. You go to the mall, and you go walking through the mall with your children. You're going to spot, if your highest value is your children, you're going to spot children's clothes, children's education, children's entertainment, children's health items, anything that will allow you to fulfill what you envision as a mother for your children, you will spot in the mall and filter it out. But let's say you go to the mall with your husband, and in order for you to be focused on full-time into children, he's probably going to be focused on business. So when he walks in a mall, he's not going to see children's items, children's educational things, and children's health items. He's going to see business items, computers, suits, anything that assists him in the fulfillment of what he values most. And he, though he may have 3 children, if you asked him what his identity revolves around and who is he and what's his purpose, he'll say, I'm an entrepreneur and I want to grow a business to provide for my family. But the family may not be his highest value. In fact, if any 2 people both have the same thing, highest value on family, they'll spend time with their children, but there'll be no income. So marriages sometimes have this androgynous mix to make sure that both of them are balanced. That's why you won't find that you're married to somebody with exactly the same values, because that would be basically an unproductive marriage, ultimately. You have what is called similars and differences, but not the same. Now, whatever your highest value is, you have a selective biased attention, and you only allow certain information to go up into the cortex. And therefore, you have an attention surplus order, ASO, not attention deficit disorder, because things low on your value have an attention deficit disorder. You take a child that has been labeled attention deficit disorder, find out what the highest value of the child is, and you'll see the child can sit nonstop for hours, totally engaged and present in what's highest on their value, but be bored in classes because the teachers are not inspiring and the content is not being used in their mind for what they value. You can take a child that's got attention deficit, find out what their values are, the highest value, and you can make links to the classes that they're taking to their highest value, and all of a sudden they're engaged and they don't have the symptoms of attention deficit. And we've done this many times. So attention deficit means something low on your value. Attention surplus order, attention deficit disorder, attention surplus order means high on your values. But you also have a selective biased retention and a retention surplus order. Now, sometimes people have come up to you and introduced themselves to you, and they said their name, and 1/1000th of a second later, somebody came up to you and said, who is that? And you go, I have no idea. You didn't even let it in. But if all of a sudden somebody really important comes up to you and introduces somebody that's really going to help you fulfill your highest values, you'll say their name, you'll write it down, you'll make sure you absorb it, you'll recite it in your head, and you won't forget it. So we automatically have attention surplus order in our highest value, attention deficit in our lower values. So just alone, studying values for just that purpose of learning is going to be very empowering as we go through these lessons. You also have a imagination surplus order or a selective biased imagination. That means for creative imagination and foresight in your brain, in your frontal cortex, you can see things and anticipate things up front if it's highest on your values. If it's low on your values, you don't anticipate it. You're looking for immediate gratification, not long-term vision. You also have a selective biased intention and an intention surplus order. Intention surplus order means that you spontaneously act and you're reliable and disciplined. That's why you're disciplined, reliable, and focused in your highest values, but you procrastinate, hesitate, and frustrate in your lower values because you have attention deficit, retention deficit disorder, imagination deficit disorder, and intention deficit disorder. Now, I've made up some of those terms. It is not necessarily in the literature, but it's gradually entering in the literature because of my terms. But you'll find out that you procrastinate, hesitate, and frustrate in your lowest values, and you're disciplined, reliable, and focused in the other. And all you have to do is look at where you excel and where you don't, and things that are more important to you and things that aren't. If you take a class that you're really inspired by and you love the information, you'll be engaged and you'll learn. If you're in a class that's, oh, I just got to pass and you just want to get a grade, it'll go into short-term memory at best. Anything that's low on your values gets stored in the hippocampus, and the amygdala assigns emotional charge to it. Anytime that goes the highest values, it goes up into the prefrontal cortex, and it becomes long-term vision, long-term information. So there's a research that just came out in Scientific American that's just this month showing how it goes from the hippocampus up through the thalamus and goes into the cortex for long-term memory. So if you want to retain information, so you're not having to live and learn things all the time, and you want to be able to get more achieved done, you want to make sure you know what your highest value is and make sure you're dedicated to your highest value and delegating lower ones. And I'm going to do more lessons on that because we're just beginning that.